Bezrat Hashem, we're going to have a beautiful lesson today. Hopefully, everybody connects, and these words are the words that everybody needs to hear in order to find greater closeness to Hashem. And specifically in this time that we're working up to Rosh Hashanah, which is the day in which the whole year is going to be determined. And we're merely experiencing that which is determined on that day for the whole year. That Rosh Hashanah is like the seed and development of the plant, and ultimately the growth and the offshoot of the plant is just merely a revelation of what takes place on Rosh Hashanah. So in this sense, it's the most important day of the year. And we're using this month to try to get ourselves in the right mindset for that day. So there's nothing better than Rabbi Nachman to try and get us in that place. As a quick review of what we've done so far, we've explained that Geula comes from deep Torah understanding, that Moshe Rabbeinu represents Da'at. He represents a felt, sensed, experienced oneness with Hashem, a coupling with Hashem, a cleaving with Hashem. This is called Da'at. This is the thing that's going to sweep over the world. This is what Yeshaya says, that Da'at is going to, or Deya is going to cover the world like water covers the sea. And this Da'at is manifested by Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is the manifestation of that Da'at. And for that reason, he's the one who's able to teach us all how to know Hashem in that way. So in this sense, this is Tavuna, this is deep Torah understanding, and this is Geula. But when he came to the Jewish people in Mitzrayim, we were in a very, very difficult, challenging generation, and we were very far from this level of Tavuna. We were in some sense the lowest place that you could possibly be. It's not unlike our generation now. And this deep secret for this is, according to the Arizal, that the generation of Da'at, meaning the generation of Moshe Rabbeinu, that passed away after leaving Mitzrayim in the desert and never made it to the land of Israel, this is the same generation as ours, and that we are those souls and we've been reincarnated. And we have to reach tikkun in order for the exile to end. And this is also the deep secret for why Moshe Rabbeinu passed away and never made it to the land of Israel. Because Hashem understood that all of the children of Israel in that generation, they were really offshoots of his neshama. And as a result of that, because we're, so to speak, like his children, he would never really want to be in the land of Israel without us. And we depend on him. So too in our generation, there's going to be a Mashiach, there's going to be a Moshe Rabbeinu, there's going to be a tzaddik, ha'emet, a tzaddik yisod olam, and he is going to be Moshe Rabbeinu. And all the souls of the Jewish people, which are really offshoots of that soul, they're going to go with him back to Eretz Yisrael. That's the Geula, that's the redemption. So when he went to go to Mitzrayim and to try to bring them that Da'at, they were so far they couldn't hear him. So what is it that allows the Jewish people to rise up from that place, to elevate, to get to deep Torah understanding? They need to achieve achdut. They need to achieve unity. They need to experience a deep spiritual unity within themselves and within the Jewish people at large. We explain that this unity is encompassed within the Shema Yisrael, that there's a higher unity and a lower unity. We're going to explain later in this Torah really what that means. Rabbi Nachman's going to say, okay, great, but how do you get to the unity that brings this deep Torah understanding? Because the more unity you experience within yourself, the more you're going to be able to connect to Hashem, because he's one. So the more you become one, the more you experience one. How do you get to that level of unity? How do you get to that level of oneness? So the answer is you do it through speech. And this is one of the secrets why Rabbi Nachman was so insistent with us that we must talk to Hashem every single day. And that if we talk to Hashem every day and specifically in our own words. So then we're going to attain the ultimate good in our lifetime and also in the world to come. The reason is because speech causes a person to elevate from whatever their level they're on to get to the next level. So with speech, you're able to move from level to level to level to level to level. And now Rabbi Nachman's going to say, what is it that allows a Jew's speech to be so powerful? Because I know a lot of us, we feel stuck. We feel like we're unable to move from the level we're on, or maybe we even feel that we're degressing. We feel that we are devolving, not that we are making progress, but that we're moving backwards. So what is going to allow us to be able to achieve the level of speech that brings us towards elevating spiritually, not moving backwards, that brings us closer to deep Torah understanding, not to feel disunited or to feel separated, to feel machloket, but to feel that shalom, to feel that peace, that unity that draws deep to our understanding. So now Rabbi Nachman says like this, Ach l'dibor she'ya'ir lo, to get to the level of speech that when you talk, that the words that you speak literally bring you to teshuvah, meaning that they show you where you need to go. They show you how you need to elevate. They give you eitzah tova from your own kishkas. You understand from your own speech how to elevate, that the Shekhinah is in your mouth. E.F. Charlie's quote, it's impossible to merit this, ki im al yedei kavod. The only way to be able to speak in a way which is so effective that it literally can bring you from the lowest of spiritual levels all the way up to the highest, it's only when your speech is infused with kavod. Kavod means honor. In our generation, this is a completely foreign concept. The reason is because the malchut is in exile. Usually when we speak about the malchut, which is the lowest of the 10 sfirot, we're relating it either to emunah, which is faith, or to tefillah, which is prayer. And that this is what's in exile. She's the lost princess, like we spoke about. For anybody who got to check out the class from last night, if you haven't got to check it out, you should really listen to it. If it bothers you that the video is sideways, so it's on SoundCloud, that was posted as well. You should really check that class out. Rabbi Nachman has a very famous story about the lost princess. And this is the story of Geula, this is the story of redemption. Now, usually when we think about malchut or kingship, we think about speech, tefillah, or we think about emunah, and that's true. However, Rabbi Nachman is going to bring another dimension of malchut. That is called kavod, honor. And in our generation, there is no such concept. In fact, the Gemara said 2,000 years ago, how do you know we're in the last generation before Mashiach comes? When there is literally no genuine honor for people who deserve it. And those people who deserve it, according to the Torah, are people who are elevated spiritually or people who are older. So, for instance, in halakha, you're supposed to get up for a person who has achieved the high level of Torah understanding. He's called a Talmid Chacham. And or you're supposed to get up for elder Jewish people or a king, right? However, the Gemara says in the final generation, you're going to see that it's the elders that get up for the youngers. That didn't make any sense. The youngsters, as my grandpa would say. The elders would get up for the youngsters. So in fact, if you go on a bus, you'll actually see this. You'll see that the elderly will get up for the youngsters. My wife experienced this many times on the bus. So this is something that was unheard of a few hundred years ago, even 100 years ago, that somebody who was younger would get up for someone who was older would get up for someone who's younger. However, it's clear from this Gemara that this is one of the main signs that the Mashiach is coming, that honor, kavod, is so much in exile. The princess is so lost that emunah is so much foreign to us, that as a result of that, that which is honored, that which is cherished, that's what's beautiful, that should be valued, that should be looked at with a sense of awe, is not. And that's also why the Gemara says that people with real Torah understanding are not only going to be not valued or honored, they're going to be vilified. They're going to be looked at as extreme. They're going to be looked at as pariahs in society, right? And we see all of these things in our generation. It's very clear. So meaning that kavod, honor, is something much deeper than some old traditional experience, which was part of those types of cultures. But really, honor is part of geula, honor is part of emunah, honor is part of tefillah, because without rectified honor, you cannot rectify your speech. He should see to it that his honor of Hashem is complete. How does a person make sure that his honor of Hashem is complete? So the way that you do this is something which the Baal Shem Tov taught in many different ways, which Rabbi Nachman brings in different expressions. And that is that to the degree in which you have something for yourself, to that degree you lack it for others. For example, if I have love for myself, that I love myself so much, let's say I have the capacity to love 100%, like a bandwidth, okay, for internet, and I'm using all that bandwidth for myself. All of my love is bound up with myself. So automatically, who won't I be loving? Anybody else. Self-love. So when I have self-love, I don't have love of others. What happens if all my thoughts are of myself? I'm concerned with myself constantly. I'm thinking about myself all the time. So what won't I be thinking about? Anybody else? Same here when it comes to honor. If I'm concerned with my own honor, so Rabbi Nachman teaches automatically, I can't be concerned with Hashem's honor or anybody else's honor. And that's why we see that those who are older are getting up for those who are younger, and that we don't honor people who have truly achieved some type of level which would merit such a thing. The reason is because everybody is solely focused on themselves. This is the reason why Facebook and Snapchat, TikTok, whatever else that's come out, all of these things are because we're trying to express our own personal honor. We want that people should recognize us, should appreciate us. And all of this is really a manifestation of exile. To the degree in which that we are looking for personal honor, it's because we have lost any desire to honor something outside of ourselves. And where does kavod belong? It belongs with Hashem. And the reason is not just because Hashem demands it, but because Hashem is the melech, he's the king. And Kabbalistically, the place of malchut, kingship, is the place of kavod. That in the Torah, whenever the word kavod comes up, it's a code word for the sphere of malchut, which is also the sphere of the Shekhinah, right? So the honor of Hashem is really the Shekhinah of Hashem. And the Shekhinah that Rabbi Nachman says comes out in a Jew's words, meaning when he talks to Hashem, he's going to experience Ruach HaKodesh. He's going to literally experience Hashem in his own mouth. That is only when his speech is perfected and it's made whole through kavod, through honor of Hashem. Hainu al yedei anava v'katnut, meaning through humility and smallness. We know that Moshe Rabbeinu, it says about him that he was a nav me'od. He was the most humble man in the world. He had attained the highest level of humility. He also achieved the highest level of Torah understanding. So Rabbi Nachman is really explaining that in fact it was his level of humility that led to his level of Torah understanding, that they're synonymous, that deep Torah understanding doesn't come with a sharp mind, but a sharp mind actually comes from humility, comes from selflessness, comes from Mesirat Nefesh. The Baal Shem Tov used to say, how chaval, how unfortunate it is that Talmidei Chachamim of our generation, that was then, so you can only imagine now, that they're so concerned with higher and higher levels of intellectual understanding. If only they knew that the greatest hasagas of Hashem, the greatest intellectual apprehension, and the greatest elevation of consciousness comes from Mesirat Nefesh for Klal Yisrael, comes from giving yourself over for Hashem and for the Jewish people in a way of self-sacrifice, in a way of nullification of ego. Because it's anava, it's humility, which brings to da'at, which brings to deep to our understanding. And katnut, smallness. And the Rashi says there in why Moshe Rabbeinu was the most humble man who ever lived. So it said for two reasons. One of those reasons was because he was able to endure tremendous suffering, and suffering humbles a person. I remember my Rabbi, Rav Aaron Volkin, Neshama should have an aliyah. So while he was alive, he started to speak about tzedakah and how the highest level of tzedakah, according to halakha, according to Jewish law, is to give it to a mikveh, which is very interesting, which I didn't know. And he explained that most people, they give it to the Beit Knesset, though. They give it to the Beit Midrash. They give it to the institution of praying, where all the Jewish people congregate. However, really the higher level of tzedakah is to give it to a mikveh. So he explained, why is it that most people give it to a Beit Knesset and they don't give it to a mikveh? And the reason he said is because when a person gives tzedakah to a Beit Knesset, his name is going to go up on the Beit Knesset, and his honor is going to be recognized. Whereas if he gives his honor to a mikveh, so there's a good chance you're not going to see his name up on the mikveh. However, nowadays it's not so true. And even nowadays you're going to see people's names up in the mikveh. However, in the past there was no such thing. You go into a mikveh, there was only the shower and the pool or whatever was there, and that was it. But if you go into a shul, you're going to see that in the honor of X, Y, and Z, in their tzedakah, we have this, and that. And I remember as I was listening to Rav Walken, so I really had a hard time understanding how if you have the ability, you have money to give tzedakah, you're giving of that money that you made. You see it's explicit in halakha that to give to a mikveh is a higher level than to give it to a Beit Knesset. So then why would anybody ever give it to a Beit Knesset and not give it to the mikveh? And I really couldn't understand. So I went to my rabbi after he was done teaching, and I said to him, I understand what you're saying about honor and how people value it, and therefore they want to give tzedakah to the Beit Knesset. But I said, if they understand that they have more spiritual value, they're going to be achieving a higher level of tzedakah, which is so important and vital for a Jewish person. So why not give it to the highest place? It doesn't take any more effort. It's the same. So he said, because they're not going to receive any honor for it. And I said, I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. So he said, David, part of the reason you don't understand is because it doesn't matter to you so much. So because it doesn't matter to you so much how people feel about you, so because of that, you don't understand how much that drives normative society. So I asked him, why would it be that I should not care so much, but that it should be so prevalent amongst others? So he said, part of the reason is because you've suffered a lot in your life. And when a person suffers a lot in their life, their concern with their self dissipates and nullifies. That was a very deep insight from him. And the other reason he gave me was because he said everybody has their own Yitzhahara. Some people, they want honor. Some people, they have a tremendous type of food. I think he was also hinting towards me because he saw the way that I was eating. So everybody has their own thing, right? But it's the suffering of a person that often brings a person to humility. And so we see from Moshe Rabbeinu, because he suffered so much in life, he achieved a very high level of humility. The other thing that he did was when other people spoke out about him, he took it without saying anything, right? He was long suffering in this way. So as a result of this, he also was achieving a high level of humility. Because what's the greatest expression of humility? That I'm not involved with myself. I don't care about my own honor. When people disparage me or they nullify my honor and I don't do anything about it. That's the greatest revelation of honor. And then your speech achieves kavod, it achieves honor of Hashem. And then you're able to get your tefillah is able to bring you to a higher level of spirituality. Because the essence of speech is from honor. It's from kavod. So the fact that David, who is the full manifestation of rectified speech, that he's called ani tefillah, I am prayer, it's not a coincidence that David was also Melech Yisrael, that he was the king of Israel, because malchut, or kavod, honor, is completely bound up with rectified speech. That once you have rectified your speech, you have achieved the level of malchut, kingship. Now you do this through humility. And also, David HaMelech was very, very humble. That we know that someone spoke out against him, and they said to David, should we, because there's a law in halakha that a king is not allowed to put his honor on the side. However, he had achieved such a high level of humility that when somebody had spoken out against him, his response was not to do anything about it because it's really Hashem. It's not this person. So where did he get that level from? It came from his level of honor for Hashem. So the higher your honor of Hashem goes, the lower your honor for yourself is. And then the more your speech carries weight. Kamosha Katuv, Mihu Zeh Melech Kavod. Who is this king of honor? Like we say in Tehillim, this is Parak 24. And Rabbi Nachman is trying to make, again, another strong relationship between Melech, kingship, and kavod, that they go together. Hainu malchut peh, meaning that the mouth is kingship. The kingship is the mouth, like it says in Tikkuni Zohar. Okay? So we see the connection here, that the mouth is rectified once there's kavod. Once there's honor of Hashem, who's the Melech, who's the king, then your mouth is rectified. This is also the deep secret why, according to halakha, a husband needs to honor his wife more than he honors himself. Because according to the deep Kabbalah, the wife is the malchut. She's his malchut. She's his mouth. She's his bayit. She's his home. She's his king. So this is actually one of the deep secrets for why you see in the Jewish world, it's often the case that the wife is the more dominant figure and the male is in some ways very subservient. Now, you see in certain cultures that's not the case, but it comes from a very deep thing because the Torah teaches that we need to honor our wives more than ourselves. The reason is because the wife is the malchut itself. So the more or the less we honor ourselves, the more we're able to honor our wives. That's part of the reason why it says that it's not good for a man to be alone, because as long as a man is alone, so as a result of that, we're not going to achieve real humility because we're concerned only with ourselves. But once we have someone who we need to take care of, who she lives for that honor, meaning if she's not honored, then she feels a tremendous bizayon. That's the reason why the Gemara says that a woman feels embarrassment more than a man. They feel it more intensely. It's more painful for them. The reason is because they represent rectified honor. So when it's not connected to them in a proper way, so they feel it even more intensely. Because when the Torah comes into tarnished speech, when the mouth is blemished, then the speech of Torah is not able to illuminate him. Meaning when a person, he's not achieved this level of humility and therefore he does not have kavod of Hashem. Sorry, 1 second. Then his speech is not able to achieve that level of teshuvah, because Rabbi Nachman's assertion so far is that speech allows a person to go from level to level to level to level, even from the lowest of levels. But that's only the case when a person has achieved rectified speech, and that comes from humility. That allows you to have kavod for Hashem, and it's the kavod for Hashem that allows your tefillah to get answered. Then the speech that comes out of your mouth, meaning the Torah, the truth that's coming out of your mouth, these divrei Torah, they cause you to do teshuvah. Even in the case that, let's say, you're able to learn something, and that itself compels you to act on it and to be able to want to elevate from what you learn. However, if a person's not humble, then when he learns, it's not going to cause him to want to change at all. He's just going to learn for intellectual exercise. But if a person realizes that he's on a low level and he understands that he can grow tremendously from whatever he's learning, and it's for his benefit, and it's going to help bring him closer to Hashem, and Hashem wants that, and he cares about that, so then he's going to be able to achieve teshuvah through what he learns. But when a person, he has a mouth which is blemished, meaning he does not have kavod or honor for Hashem, then the Torah itself becomes corporal or blackened there in his mouth. Like the pasuk says in Yoshua, Lo yamush sefer Torah hazeh mipicha. So there's a pasuk which says, and this is the halachic source for why the Torah needs to be learned day and night. We know that there's a mitzvah from the Torah that you need to learn during the daytime and during the nighttime, which if you simply say Shema Yisrael, you're yotzi this mitzvah. Even though obviously best case scenario is that you set up a learning time during the day and during the nighttime. However, Rabbi Nachman's teaching here that this word is yamush, that this word should not go out from your mouth. You could have said hotzi. Hotzi also means to go out. So why is this unique word of yamush, depart from your mouth? You use the book of Torah, should not depart from your mouth, because the word yamush comes from the word yamash, that means dark or tangible, corporal. That Rabbi Nachman's teaching, the Torah should not become shelo yidgashmu v'yidchashchu mipicha. It shouldn't become physical. It shouldn't become darkened in your mouth. Because when a person, he does not have honor of Hashem, because he's only concerned with his own ego, meaning through arrogance, he's not able to open his mouth. Like it says, Sagru pimo dibru bagayut. Like it says, their mouth closed up because they spoke with arrogance. And this is from the very, very famous story we see in the Yerushalmi that Rabbi Nachman brings up here. Because Shemama said, the Levi Bar Sisa, who was a big tzaddik, he was a big Talmid Chacham, and he went up, She'aluhu labima, he went up to the bima in order to pray for the congregation, for the tzibur. Tafat ruchu alav. Because he was going up to speak for them, he got a level of arrogance at that moment. Velo avivun, and he wasn't able to speak. Anivun, sorry. Velo anivun, and he wasn't able to talk. So we see that when a Jew has a level of gadlut, he has a level of arrogance, he's concerned with his own sense of self-importance. So then as a result of that, automatically his speech goes into exile. Okay. And that's the deeper understanding of this pasuk, which says that you should learn the Torah day and night. It shouldn't depart from your mouth. But the word depart means it shouldn't become blackened or corporal in your mouth. So this is really the secret of that mitzvah, that you should always have a very high degree of humility, that whenever you receive honor, that you should turn the honor back to Hashem. Somebody gives you credit for it, you should understand that it's not really coming from you. If you're smart, it's because Hashem made you smart, right? If you're charismatic, it's because Hashem made you charismatic. If you're empathetic, it's because Hashem made you empathetic. So the more that you're concerned with self, the more your speech goes into exile. And we can see it very obviously. Let's say, for instance, you get into a fight with your spouse and you know your spouse is right. Or let's say you don't know your spouse is right, but you understand that Shalom Bayit is more important than you being right. Peace in your home is more important than you being right. Who's the one who's able to say he's sorry? When a person doesn't have care for his own honor. But you see that where is there a very low degree of peace in the home? Where are people unable to forgive and to forget? When they have a very high degree of honor for themselves, they demand that they should be honored. And because of that, they're not able to have peace in their home. They're not able to speak. So too, when it comes to Hashem, we're also not able to speak when we're concerned with self. Because as a result of arrogance, this is really a bechina of avodah zarah. So this is very strong language, but if you think about it, it makes sense. What is avodah zarah? Avodah zarah is investment in the reality of Hashem. A person believes that Hashem really exists. If a person really believes that Hashem exists, and the Torah teaches that he's the Ein Sof, there's nothing else beside him. So whenever I put myself first, so I put something else beside him. And I put something else beside him. So that's not emunah in the achdut of Hashem, in the unity and the oneness of Hashem, because now I exist. There's something other than Hashem. So this is the bechina of avodat elilim, worship of foreign gods. Who is the foreign god? You. You have a degree of worship of self. This all comes from ego. Avodat elilim kativ, like it says, B'tzile Elohehem tisrofum be'esh. The pasuk says in Devarim that you need to destroy these statues of other gods with fire, with Eish. And the Gemara teaches anything about to be destroyed by fire is considered as if it's already reduced in size. It's considered it's already destroyed. Kemuva b'Gemara, like it says in Masechet Rosh Hashanah. She'inyan shofar, so we know the shofar is coming up in Rosh Hashanah. Shel avodat elim. For instance, we have a shofar, and the shofar, pretty much the Gemara is speaking like this. There's a mitzvah of the shofar when it comes to Rosh Hashanah. The question is, it's been used already, let's say the shofar, for some type of idolatry. It's been used for avodah zarah. Okay? So now the question is, are you allowed to use it? The law requires that the shofar needs to be of a minimum size. It also requires an object used for avodah zarah, it needs to be destroyed by fire. Such an object is considered destroyed even before it's been burned, and therefore it's legally non-existent. So it's very interesting. Even though the shofar exists, because the shofar is so small, and because it's bound to be destroyed, meaning used in fire, so as a result of that, it's considered as if it already has been destroyed. Thus, the shofar in question, it can't be used for the blowing of the shofar because it's as if it doesn't even exist. So Rabbi Nachman is using here the same concept by us. Since the size has been utterly reduced, he no longer has a voice with which to speak. Because he has arrogance, so it's as if his voice no longer is there because he's not there. Because his godly soul went into exile, because a person's godly soul is called their malchus, their sense of the Shekhinah within them. Like Hashem says, make yourself into a beit mikdash, and I'm going to dwell in them. Why dwell in them? Should we dwell in the beit mikdash? However, we're learning from here that a person needs to turn himself into a complete, humble vessel. And as a result of that, he's able to speak. But when a person lacks humility, he's not able to talk. When a person is careful and he makes sure that his honor of Hashem is b'shleimut, it's with wholeness, that he doesn't think anything of himself, then he's able to speak in a way which illuminates himself. Like it says in Yechezkel, and the earth, it's shown with his kavod. We know that the concept of earth is the concept of malchut. When the malchut is of kedusha, when a person is using kavod, he's using malchut for good. He's achieved the level of rectified speech. Ha'iru, how is that? It needs to be, his speech needs to be illuminated michvodo, from honor, from the honor of Hashem. Because the word haaretz, land in the Torah, is always referring to speech. That the land will be illuminated from his kavod of Hashem. And then his words are able to illuminate him to come to teshuvah. Like it says that a person who has attained the level of Yirat Shamayim, then his words are heard. Whose words are not heard? When they don't have Yira of Hashem, they don't have awe of Hashem. And who doesn't have awe of Hashem? Person doesn't honor Hashem. Who doesn't have honor of Hashem? A person who has an ego. So we see that what gives speech, what gives your hibodedut, what gives your tefillah the ability to help you really to rectify and to elevate from level to level to level, it's your ability to infuse that speech with honor of Hashem. Then a person's able to come to very deep Torah understanding. Bezrat Hashem, in the next lesson, we're going to learn that to be able to nullify our egos and to be able to achieve humility, it doesn't come by simply focusing on becoming more humble, or let's say when people embarrass you that I don't respond, but we're going to actually see that it's very connected to the brit. It's connected to sexual purity, that the higher degree of sexual purity a person comes to, the higher level of humility he comes to. And the reason is, just as like a primer before we get there, is because that the brit is represented by the milah. And we know that on the 8th day, a Jewish man has to remove this milah, because that skin, even though he was born with it, it is excessive. It's not necessary. That's why we remove it. But in a very deep sense, klipa really means ego. And people don't realize that when they speak about the klipot, or they speak about the sitra achra, spiritual forces in the world. What is that spiritual force in the world which nullifies or conceals the presence of Hashem in a person's life? It is the force of the ego. That's really what the nachash is. That's why I said that Adam and Chava, that they had no connection to the nachash before he injected them with his poison. What was his poison he injected them with? Ego. So in order to nullify the ego, how do we do that? We need to remove that which is excessive. And that is related to the brit. So once we remove the mila, then we have achieved humility. We're going to find out more about this connection, Bezrat Hashem, in the next lesson. Does anybody have any questions from today? Any questions?
I have a question, but I'm not quite sure what it is. So I will.
Okay.
I'll try my best.
Go ahead.
So you talked about like when you get in an argument with your spouse and, whether they're right or, maybe you don't know they're right and what if somebody's just abusive? They're really just verbally and emotionally abusive.
Right. Okay. So this becomes a little bit more difficult because then it's not about your own honor. It's about protecting your safety, which is a mitzvah to protect your life, right? So, anybody who's in an abusive relationship needs to consider leaving that relationship because it's not healthy for them. So this is a different thing. For the normative case is that there's a lot of bickering and fighting that's going on, but the bickering and fighting that's going on is not considered at the level of abuse, right? That would be considered legal abuse. And in that case, it's really a level of humility that allows you to not respond and to be able to move forward. In terms of abuse, which is a more serious thing and has less to do about your own honor, has more to do with protecting yourself. So in that case, you need to make sure that you're in a safe place. That makes sense?
It makes sense. I mean, so, I've been practicing the teaching of Azamra for over a year in this relationship. And I really felt like I affected a lot of change, but you can only affect so much change with somebody who's completely unconscious and has no desire to elevate spiritually.
Yes, that's true.
So it's like, and then I got pulled into it today. And then I literally, everything's shaking inside me because I'm like, I haven't responded in, this way, right? Which is it's a relation, it's a relative. So it's a very old relationship, right?
Sure.
And, so it's got like a lifetime of history behind it. And, and I feel like, I'm in the month of Elul, which is probably no coincidence, right? That it happened in the month of Elul. And it's like, how do I do teshuvah, for me?
Right, sure.
Because I can't change the other person as much as I have been praying and trying.
So one is that it could be that you have achieved a level of tikkun in this area, but now you're at the next level of your life, and you always have to revisit those things which you have worked to fix in the past. Often when we get to those places, we think we just haven't made that progress that we thought we had, and we get frustrated and upset with ourselves because we thought we made this progress and we really haven't. However, it's usually not that. And in fact, you have actually elevated from that place, but now you have to revisit that place again where you're holding now. So you should judge yourself favorably and assume that you have done well in this area, and that's why it's coming back again. But in the month of Elul, like you said, this is a month where usually Hashem draws on those things that are our greatest weaknesses that we struggle the most with, because he wants to get us ready for Rosh Hashanah. Because then we're going to anoint Hashem as the Melech, we're going to anoint him as the king. But we're saying that for us to anoint him as the king, Rabbi Nachman says, this whole month of Elul is a rectification for the brit. So what does the brit have to do with me getting like bizayon, that I'm getting embarrassed in this month, or I'm, those sensitivities are being, they're being pressed on. So the answer is that it's through the tikkun of the brit that we're able to actually achieve higher levels of humility and actually better relationships with people. The reason is because brit is shalom, it's peace. Rabbi Nachman says that a person who's fighting constantly, let's say with his wife, maybe not so much about family members, but their spouse, it's often because the husband himself, he has a pagam in the brit, and I've actually seen myself that through elevation in this area, there's a much less fighting, and it's not even because like I'm more humble and therefore we're not fighting as much. It's just like went away somehow, just like magically disappeared.
Right.
So this is also alluded to by the name Yosef. Yosef means to gather, right? Rachel Imenu said when Yosef was born, that Hashem has gathered up the humiliation. It's meaning to say when a person's connected to Yosef, they've attained the brit. So then the humiliation, meaning the fighting, goes away. So it could be that this thing that you experience in this month is rectifying you in this area of the Yesod. And as a result of that, it's going to go away completely because with Hashem in the future.
So I feel like, so what is his, so interestingly enough, this morning in my hisbodedut, before this happened, I said, Hashem, show me what I have to do teshuva for in the month of Elul. And then this happened. I was like, really?
Okay, so you say thank you, it's Rabbi Nachman says that the highest level of teshuva is when you hear yourself being vilified and you don't respond.
I know. Well, I had been doing that for months. That's why
it's great. No, but I'm saying, that was you at your level, and maybe Hashem sees that you're ready for the next level, so you need to go through it again, And when you asked for it, Hashem says, okay, so my daughter's ready for getting to the next level, and then answers your prayer. So you see that Hashem's listening to you. That's unbelievable. So it must be that you achieve some level of humility to get your prayer answered. And to bring yourself to that experience. One of Rabbi Nachman's students said that if a person really realized how big of a tikkun it is, how much is rectified by hearing yourself being vilified and not responding, or having the ability to respond like that, really they should like go prepare and go to the mikveh and like celebrate beforehand. But because it happens out of nowhere, and then we get befuddled by it, and so we're not able to prepare in time. But it's a good thing. It means that you're growing and you're elevating, and Hashem is trying to help you get to another level.
Okay, then my question is, so I actually have been doing this, and again, more just out of this willingness to like this desire to really want to humble myself no matter what. So even when a scenario like this has come up, and again, like what's come at me has just been really abusive, I still have gone and asked for forgiveness for how I responded, right? So I met that with the same kind of energy, right? So I apologize for that. And then it was never reciprocated, and I just had to bear that also.
Right.
But so my question is like this time I don't feel like doing that. It's like,
right.
It's just so like really brutally just cruel. Like the verbal attacks are just so deeply cruel.
I understand. Yeah, it's not easy. It's very, very hard. It's very challenging. It's very painful often. So I have a lot of empathy for you. You got to be strong. You got to be valiant. You got to get up and start over again, and judge yourself favorably. Judge yourself favorably in how you responded. Not just judge them favorably, but judge yourself favorably. And Hashem knows that you're doing the best that you can. And you asked for something. So just say thank you and move on. And when you get to that opportunity again, you'll be able to handle it in a different way, or in a way that you feel like is more elevated. But it's really it's hard to understand how this is such a high level, but according to Rabbi Nachman's teachings, it's the highest level of teshuvah. It could be that the redemption is going to come in the merit of what you just did. So
I can feel how it is. I mean, because you feel like you feel the momentum of ego literally burning in the willingness to not act it out, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah,
you
sure.
feel it.
Yeah, 100%. No, you really do. So it's a big thing, and Hashem's listening to you.
So should I apologize for my response, even though it was really self-defense?
I think it's more important how you and Hashem are. Meaning, what am I saying to Hashem about it? When if it's mamish abuse, meaning you're in a danger. So you don't want to enable abuse.
It's verbal and emotional. It's not physical, but
I understand.
Deeply verbal and emotional.
I understand. Yeah, even verbal abuse is abuse.
Yeah.
So it's hard when it comes to this subject. Our generation's very sensitive to this. In old books of Musar, it seemed like there was you shouldn't respond to anything ever. You just take it. But obviously in our generation we see that there's like more abuse, and then therefore there's more sensitivity to it. So it's a hard thing. I would just ask Hashem for help with it, and to ask Hashem to make those clarifications that you need with him. And you should know whatever it is that you need to do. I wouldn't be so concerned with how they're perceiving you or experiencing you. I'd be more concerned with Hashem.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Don't forget to judge yourself favorably. It's very important. Anybody else? Any other questions before we sign off? Okay.
All right, wait. Also,
yes.
just say, I did track down a Likutey halachot, and somebody from who lives in Beit Shemesh will be contacting you.
Okay, very good. I'm looking forward. Thank you, Hope.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody have a great day. Bezrat Hashem. We're going to continue this lesson later this week. Tonight or tomorrow night by you guys, Rav Benjamin Weinberg is going to be teaching his third class, which is really exciting. The classes are getting better and better. I would definitely check it out. It brings a new element to the teachings that we're doing now, and I think it's very, very good, and it's worthwhile. It's good to be a part of. So everybody have an amazing night, and hopefully you guys get to check out the class tomorrow, and we'll be back in touch together soon. Everybody have a great day.